Hey everybody, welcome to Sunday Slowdown with J&J Acres, and we are whooped today, y'all. I got a long story to share with you, so first want to say thanks to everybody who's signing in. We know there are a couple of shows you could be watching tonight besides us, but we're glad that you agree this is the better place to be. And we'll forgive you if you're watching this up close and watching another screen off in the distance. So just appreciate you being a part of the show today, and we got a good story to share, so I hope it's worth your time. I do want to take just a moment to mention, in case this is your first time finding our live show, that we are a part of the homesteadnetwork.com. It is a group of YouTube channels that are focused on homesteading, gardening, prepping, and those types of genres. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, about how to be more sustainable, then go check out the homesteadnetwork.com. You can see all the different YouTube channels that are involved, read bios about them, and see what time they are going to be live. And I tell you what, folks, it is racking up. You could just about watch full-time homesteading and prepping TV over there at the homesteadnetwork.com. So be sure to check that out. So I see so many of you checking in and want to thank you again for being a part of the show.
Like our channel, like the
video.
The video, yeah, like the video.
Please, if you've ever been a part of a live video, then you know that all these wonderful comments you're leaving for us disappear when we hit the button at the end and tell it to stop streaming. So the only way that it stays around is that you hit that thumbs up for the video to know that you were here. And then if you happen to decide to come back later and add a comment onto the recording, well, then we certainly appreciate your time and effort. So Tommy, I am extremely tired, and I'm amazed that you are on the stream tonight, sir. I can't believe that you're not tired. Go to bed. Don't you have something better to do? No, really. We've got a lot of questions, people asking us how our day was. Well, that's what the story is about. The story today is all about how today was. But I'm going to throw some other things in there as well. So for those of you that are first here to the show, I want to remind you that if you have any questions, to leave them over in the comments and put them in all caps. That's how Jennifer notices that there are questions, and then she will get my attention so that we can get those questions answered. So remember to leave your questions in all caps.
I'm in the show today, but I am still monitoring everything, and I am still keeping track of everything.
All right. So if you're wondering where Brandon is, he's been a regular on the show for the last few episodes. The children are enjoying the cool weather just as much as we are. I tell you what, folks, I got up this morning and it actually felt cold. I mean, it felt like I don't want to get out from under the blanket cold. And that's a good feeling.
It really is.
That is a good feeling. So the kids have actually pitched the tent in the backyard, and they are camping out. So Brandon wants to go be a part of that. He also wasn't feeling quite 100%, but he also wants to be a part of the fun outside. So please excuse Brandon from the show. All right. So if it's first time being a part of this show, I also want to tell you that normally our repertoire is that we will talk about what has happened during the last week since we last talked, and then we will switch over to the questions and answer part of the show, and we will also talk about what our plans are for the upcoming week. You'll get some sneak peeks into what's been happening that probably didn't even get a video made on it, and maybe a sneak peek on to what kind of videos are coming up in the near future. However, I will give you the one commercial up front today. If you are a patron over at patreon.com, then you know more than anybody else. So if you're interested in helping us out that way, then go check it out. So there's your one commercial. Let's move on. Okay, so let's get to the picture show. Something kind of, I don't want to say scary. I don't want to be too alarming about it.
Made us nervous.
made us a little nervous. Something that's happened for the first time in 7 years that we've lived here. First time this has ever happened to us. So to tell this story, we have to go over to the picture show. So here's your first picture for the day. That's right, this is our one of our deer cameras way in the back of our property. This is the furthest, it's actually going to be the southwest corner of our property. Went out there one day to get the pictures, get the SD cards, came back with the SD cards and saw this. This is the first time we've ever had somebody uninvited on the property that we didn't know who they were. We've had the neighbors' kids come over and use a straight lane where we mowed with the tractor, use that as a place to shoot their shotgun, and had to ask them not to do that because
they're four-wheelers.
Or they're four-wheelers, but we knew who they were, and we were able to go to the neighbor and say, hey, look, no harm, no foul, but let's not do this in the future. And everybody was fine with it, and we're still happy neighbors. These fellas, we have no clue who they are. So what's even more interesting about this is the second picture. Here in the second picture, you can see the guy in red point straight at the deer camera. Now, folks, here's what I think happened. What I think happened is somehow these two fellas found their way onto my property. Judging from the direction they walked from, there's no way they could have got onto the property without without knowing that they crossed onto our property. The poly wire fence from when the horse was in this area is still there. So they would have had to step over something. Even if a tree has knocked it down, because I haven't been walking that since it's not actually containing an animal right now, I'd like to think that it was visible enough to catch someone's attention. But even if our property line wasn't enough, there is only one unoccupied lot off the road that they could have walked through to get to our property. Everybody else has a house on their property. So in this instance, it's almost like we're landlocked. They would have had to go through someone else's property just to get to ours. But somehow or another, they get to our property, they see the bushwhacked trails, and they follow it, and all trails lead to Deerfield. So I think that's how they ended up getting back here. And then when at the Deerfield, you see the salt block, and the salt block gets you to notice the deer camera. So on one hand, my initial response to this was, oh no, yet he's pointing at a trail camera that is nothing more than strapped onto the tree. It's not locked onto the tree. And any criminal with two cells to rub together could have figured out to just take the deer camera and try to get rid of the evidence. Now that said, back here on picture one, it doesn't look like they noticed this trail camera. And if you notice here, there's two folks in the picture. The same gentleman in the red shirt from the picture I just showed you, and a second one with a ball cap that appears to be carrying some type of a pipe in his hand. But I don't know. He also appears to be looking out for something. Now, whether or not he's checking trees for more cameras, I have no clue. Maybe he heard something in the wood. Maybe they have a dog that's lost that they're trying to find. I really don't know, but I like to think that because they didn't try to steal the camera, that it wasn't their intention to do anything wrong, and I've never seen them before. So I have shown this to the sheriff's department. They do not recognize the folks. That was my primary concern, is whether or not these were known criminals, and nobody recognized them right off the top. So they're going to be keeping an eye out. Obviously, the sheriff's department, they know where I live. So they're going to be keeping an eye out, and we will be keeping an eye out as well, watching the trail cameras. So my biggest concern, my cameras and my ladder stand are the only thing out there of any value. But my real concern is that my kids go out and play in the what they like to call the maze, the bushwhacked trails going through our 7 acres. They love to go play out there, and I do not want strangers coming up on my kids.
Tell them what you did to the trail cams to make sure they didn't steal them.
Actually, I don't want to put that out there. I think that's a story that we want to keep to ourselves.
Well, we made sure that they're not going to steal them.
Yeah. So we have now being heightened to our alert here, having our alert heightened rather. We have taken some measures to make sure that the trail cameras are not going anywhere. So we had some comments about these 2 pictures. So before I go any further, I want to address those. Let me come back over here to the software so that we can all look at each other. So one person mentioned, a pipe. That's a shotgun. If that's a shotgun, it's not like anything I've ever seen. If in the recording you go back and look at it, or, well, I'll just go ahead and pull it up again right now. Well, that's a sneak peek. If you zoom up here on it, let me see if I can... No, that's not going to work because I'm doing a video or a screen capture of that scene. It tapers like the swedged end of a top rail from a chain link fence. It tapers like that, like a swedged top rail for a chain link fence. Because of that, I don't think that that's a shotgun. If it is a shotgun, then they're after my deer, and that's a problem. That would upset me greatly. So anyway, another question here was, have you painted purple all around your property lines? I'm not well versed. I've seen that put other places. I am not aware of anything that requires me to inform someone else that they are coming onto my property line. As I understand the state of Mississippi castle doctrine, as they call it, you being on my property gives me the right to defend me and my property. So if I understand right, this purple is supposed to be some sort of replacement for a posted no trespassing kind of sign.
Universal trespassing colors.
Yeah. Quite frankly, if I were these fellas, I bet you I can make a case in a court in a snap of a fingers to say that's not universal at all. Nobody knows what the heck that is, and the judge would throw the concept out.
I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, I don't buy that purple post thing. What I do have is that polywire that's still out there. What I do have are survey markers. I just this year had a property line survey done where I paid for a surveyor to come out and put a post in the ground.
Every 10 feet.
I got one that close, somewhere about 10 feet if the elevation changed really bad. But most were about 50 to 100 feet. They were line of sight.
Line of sight, yeah.
They were line of sight, one post to the next. And that, along with the polywire from the horse fence, I think it's clear as day that you crossed property.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there you are.
Let alone the fact that they had to have crossed someone else's property lines, and we have never seen these 2 guys before in the 7 years we've lived here, so.
Yep. All right, so before we go on to the rest of our picture show, any other questions that you noticed about that?
Nope, not about this one.
Okay. All right, so why am I so tired?
Boy. I've even got a migraine coming on.
And what is the big story for today? Well, we're going to start the story with this picture right here. And that is a picture of our crane scale. I bought this last year in hopes of taking down a deer and wanting to be able to weigh it. And today, it weighed a pig. So we finally got around to butchering our boar. So if you've been watching this week, then you've seen a lot of our videos. Well, I think pretty much every video that came out this week was pig related. We talked about the pig pen that was being built. I talked about what I was doing in their old area and gave a little primer that the piglets had been born. And then today came out the video that was all about the piglets themselves. So what we don't want to have happen is that boar re-impregnate the sow that just gave birth. So to fix that problem, we butchered him. So I don't know what these numbers well, I know when I weighed, but I don't know if these numbers really mean anything to anybody. So this is an American guinea hog boar that was, how old was he at this point? A year and a half? 2 years?
Somewhere around
We
that.
had him for a year and a half.
He was probably about 2 years old.
So probably about 2 years old. Mostly fed on alfalfa, hay, regular pig feed from the store, and corn, with also a good bit of chopped up greenery from around the property and fallen walnuts and acorns from around the property. So 155.8 was his just been butchered weight, or no, excuse me, just been, he was dead. Yeah, that's him hanging.
Yeah.
And then at 126.9, that was after being eviscerated. And then at 93.5, that is after being skinned and no head. So that is basically what got put into the freezer. 93.5 pounds. One way or another, chopped up in a bunch of different ways. 93.5 pounds. So somebody else will have to tell me whether or not that's any good. We went from 155.8 to 93.5 into the freezer. So one of y'all have to let me know if that's any good or not. So there is a story to go along with this.
A few, actually.
A few stories. So I guess the only place to start is at the beginning. Usually when I have a large project ahead of me, and I have been planning to do this today for at least a week. I had it set in my mind. I don't know how most of you guys are, or most of you ladies. I like to think this is, you know, there are certain characteristics or attributes you can say are more typical to men or more typical to women. I think this is one that is more typical to men, and I think it is more typical than not. I like to have my schedule, and I like it to stay the way I set it. So when I tell myself, you know, well, today I'm going to try to butcher the pig and plant this garden and do this and do this, that's normally what I do. I overplan, and then I get mad at myself because I plan too many things. So for well over a week now, I have set aside this Sunday was going to solely be take care of the boar.
And believe me, every time I've asked him, what are we doing this weekend? It's been on Sunday, all we're doing is take care of the boar. Yeah. Not a matter of, well, what are we doing Sunday evening or afternoon or whatever. No, he scheduled the entire day to take care of the boar.
So I finally figured out that problem. I knew I was doing something that was a large process and something I had never processed an animal as big as a pig before. So I knew it needed my full attention. So this was the one thing I was doing. So yesterday, on Saturday, a dozen different projects and chores got worked on. But today was just for the pig. And normally when I have a project like that, like a building project or something else, where I know that I basically want to roll out of bed, put on the overalls, and go outside, I make sure everything's laid out ahead of time. You know, like if I'm building something, I know where I got all my wood in one place. I've got the screws, I've got all the tools, everything. Well, it wasn't quite so today. I thought I knew where everything was, but this morning I spent the better part of an hour searching for my gambrel, the little piece of metal that you use to make sure that the animal's legs stay separated when you hang it up. I spent the better part of an hour trying to find that. And I tried hard and long enough that it ended up waking up this poor lady. So she got up to try to help me with it, and I had everything else at that point, but I could not find that. And I had finally got to the point where I said, well, forget it. I'm just going to tie him up with ropes. So I was already going to use the front end loader of the tractor to get him at the right height and do with all that. I mean, I've got the tractor. It's the best way to do it. But I wanted to have the gambrel, and instead had to decide to use the rope. So that becomes a part of the story a little bit later on. So not having not being able to find that, I'm also relying on some tools that are not generally used in butchery. But in the effort of using what I have rather than invest in something new because I don't know how many times I'm going to be doing this, I went into the kitchen drawers and I found the biggest kitchen knife I could find. You know, one that's got about a 9-inch blade on it, nice and wide, regular, plain, not a serrated knife, and brought that outside with me. So, you know, every time you start looking about information about finding pigs, one of the things that you read about that kind of, if you've never done it before, that kind of intimidates you is that kill shot, the shot to the brain, because you always hear about how their brain's only the size of a walnut, and you got to do it just in this perfect spot, or you're going to miss. And of course, I'm trying to, I'm killing an animal, but I'm trying to do it in a way where the animal doesn't have to suffer, you know. And so I'm wanting to get it right. You know, and so it's kind of a stressful thing if you haven't done it before, that you want to just, you almost want to get in there with a ruler and a marker and draw on the thing's head to make sure you get it right. But as it turns out, that wasn't the issue. I used a Ruger 1022 rifle.
Went down without a hitch.
Yeah, I just got in the pen. The pig started following me around. I turned around, pointed it where it needed to be pointed, pulled the trigger, and he went flat down just like he was supposed to. So, other than so preparation didn't go well, but step 1 of the actual process went just as planned. So we move forward to step 2, to actually bleeding out the pig. So I had looked into a couple different ways of doing this. Poor Tommy. I don't know about y'all, but I send some really screwy texts over to Tommy Alderman. The poor guy, he says this is not the craziest kind of messages he's ever had. But
Which scares me.
Yeah, I don't know. Out of the blue, right? But so if you've been over to Alderman Farms channel, which I highly recommend that you do, he has a video on there where they're giving you a tip about how to skin an American guinea hog. Which, to summarize, involves cutting in small strips and then pulling the skin, rather than trying to do an entire cloak like you would on a deer or a rabbit or something like that. So I was watching Tommy's video and then watching several other videos and trying to see things from different angles and things like that. And out of nowhere, without any prior warning, I send Tommy a message. Did you eviscerate that pig head up as well? I mean, can you just imagine? I have no clue what he was doing. He could have been at a meeting at work. He could have been driving down the road. He could have been at the dinner table for all I knew. And here I am asking him about how he eviscerated a pig. So I don't know what kind of goofy messages y'all come up with. But that's kind of stuff I messaged Tommy Alderman. And then just this morning, when things weren't going quite as well as I expected, he got several more messages from me as well. So a shout out there to Tommy Alderman for putting up with my craziness. But anyway, I had watched and talked to Tommy about several different ways on bleeding the pig. So the general idea here being that you shoot the pig in the brain or very near the brain, and it people like to call it stunning the pig, but it shuts down the brain function, but the heart keeps pumping. And so now the idea is to use that pumping action, so long as it keeps going, and get as much blood out of the pig as possible. Well, I decided that because of how I was going to try to skin the pig, that I wanted to go ahead and puncture the heart. And the way you do that essentially is to go in right here, and you go straight down past the ribs, and you cut some of the arteries or hit the heart itself. And the general way of knowing that you did a good job is that you get covered in blood. Well, I took this kitchen knife of mine and I started trying to get it into that pig, and Lord have mercy, I think that the pig had armor on. I could not get it to puncture the pig. And so then I started trying to pinch the skin and cut a slice in its hide so that I could then puncture in, and it just wouldn't go. So I went and decided just to give it the old college try and did a big old heave-ho, and wouldn't you know that the knife snapped right off at the handle. Right there at the hilt, the knife just snapped in two, and I ended up having a 9-inch blade laying on the ground and handle in my hand. So I had to ask Jennifer. I said, please run, grab, give me another knife. I need another knife, because now I'm kind of in panic mode now, because I'm worried about this pig that, you know, how long is its heart going to keep pumping?
Yeah. At this point, I was actually helping him in the background as much as I possibly can. He was doing the heavy lifting, if it were, and I was doing whatever needed to get done in the background, running and getting the knives and things like that.
So she ran, and basically, how did you phrase it?
Got every single kitchen knife I could find.
If I remember right, you said, I got you everything that was sharp.
I got him a couple of really long ones, and I got him one paring knife.
Yeah.
He ended up using the paring knife.
Yeah, no kidding.
Cut the hide.
I've used that paring knife in the past, and so I knew how sharp it was, and I used the paring knife to make the incision past the skin, and then I used the longest knife that she brought me and got in there and finally made a cut that started to produce blood, but it wasn't the amount of blood that I had seen in every other video I had watched. So I started worrying, oh no, it took too long. And so now we were just trying to beat the clock. And so Jennifer jumped into the pen with me. Well, she was already in the pen at that point. She jumped in the pen when she got me the knives. But I tell you what, folks, when you have, what did we say it was, 155 pounds? Was that what it said on the scale there?
Yeah.
Dead weight?
We didn't lift him over the fence the first time we tried. We barely got him over the second.
You know, I grabbed the two fore legs and she grabbed the two hind legs, and
the first time we missed by about that high.
We did a 1, 2, 3. Nope, down. So we didn't make it over the hog panel fence the first time, and that hog panel fence is, I think they advertise it at, I can't remember, I want to say it's either 34 or 38. I can't remember if it's just under or just over 3 feet.
Just over, I think.
Okay, so we couldn't clear the fence, so we got a better grip. We knew what we were really getting into this time, and then we did 1, 2, 3 again, and we barely, kind of like a tennis ball, barely skimming the net, got that pig back over on the other side. Are we having difficulties? Okay.
No, it was fixed.
Oh, okay. So we got the pig on the other side of the fence. So there we go. We got the pig outside of the pen now. We bring the tractor over. I dragged the pig about 6 feet to get it to how close I could bring the tractor. Get it up on the front end loader and take it over to where we're going to be processing. So now things kind of go as planned. I decided to eviscerate first. I had watched a couple different videos, and to me it seemed like it was a better idea to eviscerate first and skin second. So that's what I did. We took care of we gutted the pig, and then stepped into the skinning process. So the tools involved with this are a hook razor blade. If you just Google hook knife razor blade, it'll be the first thing that comes up, or there's a link in the show notes. Did that come up right in the video description? Is it showing the links I wanted it to show?
Yes,
Yeah.
hook knife razor blade.
Yeah, so hook knife razor blade is down there, and you can get an idea for what we were using. So the idea here is that you want to get just below the skin, just below where the follicles are in the hair. Make several vertical incisions, and then one horizontal incision that connects all those verticals so that you have a place to grab the skin and pull. Well, in almost all the videos I watched, this was like caping a deer or caping a rabbit. It was simply a grab and yank, and off comes the skin. So that was the experience I was expecting, and I didn't get it. So I sent Tommy and Patty some messages and pictures and even a video this morning saying, what am I doing wrong? And they were grateful enough, or gracious enough, to respond back to that. And I found out that my first mistake was making my strips too wide. I was doing about a 4-inch strip, and I brought it down to about a 1 to 2-inch strip. And still, honestly, had some difficulty with it. Now, I fought with the pig. I ended up, rather than just being able to grab it and strip it, I ended up having to use the pliers as a bit of a weight and just slowly, as Patty and Tommy call it, just kind of fillet at the fat and slowly work it off. And that was becoming tiresome.
There got to be a point where he needed a break. He hadn't eaten breakfast, and I walked over and I told him, look, do a strip or two, teach me what you're doing. Because I'd been sitting in the background for the entire time watching what he was doing, but I wasn't really paying attention. So I walked over, teach me what you're doing, and he showed me, and I started doing it, and I did it his way the first time, and it made my hand really tired to be sitting there yanking on it while I'm trying to fillet it the way he was doing it. So finally I started pulling outward, using the weight of the pig to actually pull against the strip, and that's when it actually started coming easier, because as I was using the weight of the pig, it started pulling apart, and I wasn't filleting it near as much as he was fighting with it.
And part of what scared me about doing that, because just to try to describe that in a different way for our podcast listeners later, I was basically trying to pull the skin straight down against the pig. Jennifer was coming more at about a 45-degree angle and pulling against the pig, so as the pig would swing or want to go back towards center to be plumb, it was helping pull the skin away with it. Is that another way to say it? Okay.
That's exactly what was happening.
So, but you were having the same difficulties at first.
There were a few times where the skin would snap and I'd have to start over again.
But what was the easiest part of the pig?
The back.
Yeah. So there were about 4 or 5 strips that would have gone right along the back of the pig. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, I was sitting there finishing my breakfast that Jennifer made sure I actually ate this morning. I think that was kind of like grumpy husband control.
Yeah.
She knew I hadn't eaten and I was getting frustrated, and she said, go sit down and eat some.
Made a child bring him a bowl of cereal.
Worked out pretty well, actually.
Uh-huh.
But when I saw her do the back was when I thought, that's how it was supposed to work. That's what it was supposed to do. Because she just grabbed that thing and the entire strip just came off and left the prettiest piece of white fat on the back of the pig. It was just perfect. So anyway, so we get all of the skin off of the pig. We finally finished that task. And I have to say, I did learn one lesson. I'm a righty, and when I was finding out was when I did have to fillet. If I was holding the pliers in my left hand and using my right hand to fillet down the fat so I could take the strip off, inevitably the tip of the knife would hit whatever was just to my left. So at the beginning of all this, I had started on what would have been the right of the pig, and so there was always going to be hair. There was always going to be hair. The next section to work on was always going to be to my left. And what I found I was doing was I kept cutting the hair on my way down into the fat. So my first lesson learned there was I decided to start working from the left, and I found that I was putting less hair back onto the carcass. So I think that probably there's a lot to be said for experience with doing it, but I was still pretty frustrated with how much hair got onto the carcass. We did follow Tommy's advice, as well as several other people on YouTube, where once we had the pig hung at the very beginning, I used a stiff brush and knocked all the dirt I could off of, and sprayed him down really well. I'll answer that in just a minute. Mm-hmm. Sprayed him off really well, basically until the water ran clear. I mean, I was trying to make sure, but still got hair on the carcass. And I mean, if you've processed any kind of animal, and you start getting hairs or pin feathers onto the meat, you realize just how frustrating it is to have to try to sit there and get it off. So I don't know if we're going to try to keep gaining more experience with the skinning, or if we're going to find a way to scrape them next time, to scald them and scrape them. I'm just not sure. But anyway, for today's purpose, we got the pig skinned. We had brought him over to a table where we could lay him down and connect the scale so we could weigh it again to find out where we were at. And in the process of doing so, we come all the way back to the beginning of the story and the missing gambrel. The rope snapped.
Luckily, it snapped when we weren't actually working on him, though. It snapped while Jared was holding one end of him, and I was trying to move the tractor. So
basically, I had the forelegs, and I was just picking up the first foot or two of the pig to lay it on a table, so that Jennifer could then lower the bucket down, lower him the rest of the way on the table. And just as I started picking it up, it must have made just enough abrasion in the rope to finish off the rope, and poof. So
landed in the dirt, but we got him washed off as quick as we could. So
yeah. So the rope probably wasn't the best. It was just the generic nylon rope that you can buy for, you know how they wrap it up and then wrap around it and sell it for $5 at Lowe's. I mean, it was just that. Rope that's been sitting around in the shed and hadn't been used in a long time, and I wasn't worried about cutting it into whatever length I needed to have for doing the processing this morning. So, but yeah, pig landed, and here we are. We did all this skinning, so now it's just clean fat laying smack dab in the dust. Up we hoisted the pig again. Got it. I spent, I don't know, a good 10 minutes or so hosing it down, rubbing it down, getting all the dirt back off until we felt comfortable with it, and then got back into the processing process.
Yep.
So the next big thing on doing what I can with what I have was we took off the head and then brought it over to split it in two. Now I don't. Yeah.
Do you have the picture of the carcass weight?
Well, I already showed it. It was the 95 and whatever.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
Yeah, there it is, 93.5.
That's how much we put away.
Yep.
Maybe 5-10 pounds of that was wasted.
Well, I don't think it was that much.
I don't think it was even that much either.
There was a little bit of trim. The trotters, and I found out once I got him up there, he still had his lungs. Everything else had been removed beforehand, but I had missed the lungs up to this point.
But most of that 90 pounds went in the freezer.
Yeah. So I had asked, I've been told a couple different ways we could do this, and the one that I ended up having, I own a little tiny hacksaw, like one that you can use on PVC pipes in tight areas, and I actually did use that a couple times today.
Yeah, it was helpful.
But I also had two old, like, don't know when they were bought, don't know how, I don't know anything about them really. Probably both came from my dad's house when he moved. Hacksaws, like the big rectangular blade kind of hacksaws. But I also have a reciprocating saw, a Sawzall. So the catch was I didn't have the recommended blade. I talked to Danny over at Deep South Homestead, left a message on one of his videos, and I believe he recommended a 10-inch metal, as in the blade is rated for metal blade. Well, I didn't have one, and I wasn't up for going to the store to do that. So I used what I had, and I had a really long wood demolition saw. So that's what we used. And the only thing that really went wrong with that was I didn't find myself able to stay going directly down the spine. I found myself ending up, I started going directly down the spine, and then I ended up on one side. So that could have been several things. Just my inexperience with it. I don't use the Sawzall very much. It could have been because it was the wrong blade. I don't know. But that I found that being something difficult. But for all the little trouble that is, that's a whole lot better than going like this for 30 minutes. So, or however long it takes, because I don't even want to know. So anyway, we got the pig in its two halves, and then can you find the name? Oh, well, I guess it'd be easier if I looked it up. I have been watching an actual like how to butcher video, and somebody had recommended it to me, but I had already watched it about twice before they even recommended it to me. And I have watched this man's videos a couple times for a couple different kinds of animals. He's actually a butcher over in the United Kingdom. I don't want to say whether it was England or Scotland or where it was, because I don't really remember. But he is an actual lifelong butcher at a place that, as I understand it, is quite a well-to-do butchery, like bespoke kind of butchery. So, and he presents himself really, really well. So I'm trying to pull him up here. I want to give him credit since I watched his videos. Scott Ray, if you want to look him up, the YouTube channel, and please don't make noise, is the Scott Ray Project, and it's Scott, S-C-O-T-T, and I'm pronouncing Ray, but it is spelled R-E-A. So I don't know if that's the proper pronunciation for that, but and he's got two videos over there. I don't know why I can do this. I don't know why I'm not doing it here. I'm so used to Jennifer interacting with the chat that sometimes I forget I can do it too. So anyway, there's his YouTube channel, and he's got at least two videos that I watched that is from beginning to end how to butcher a pig. And what he's talking about here is how to get butcher shop cuts out of the carcass of a pig. So that's what I was trying to follow, because, you know, really when you look at the pig, when the pig was alive, and you looked at him, I personally thought there's not a lot of meat there. I thought, to me, it looked like a small little animal, and I just didn't really see it. Of course, I've never butchered a pig before, but what I do have experience with is even just a 10-pound duck, and knowing that there's a big difference between just having a roast duck, or if you take out all the individual components of the meat, all the different pieces of the meat, you can make the meat spread further. And so I was wanting to get all those different cuts and make the meat spread further. I don't know why I'm trying to slide out of my chair tonight, but I guess I'm like half falling asleep over here. But
you're attracted to me.
That's what it is. Hi, sweetie. So that was what I wanted to follow. So Jennifer sat there with her phone and YouTube and going through where I needed to be cutting next, because even though I'd watched it a couple of times, I didn't remember the whole process by heart. So for the first half of the pig, that's what we followed. I did every cut the best way I could do, and some things were a little hard because I didn't understand. He was describing where to find the joint to make a cut, and I couldn't quite figure it out. So I would just look at the video and position my cut where it looked like he positioned his, and ran into some stumbling blocks. But then for the second half of the pig, let me tell you something, we got some really big hams, and we got a couple roasts out of the what did he keep calling that area?
The shoulder.
The loin.
The loin.
He kept calling the entire rib cage area the loin. I know we did take out the tenderloin specifically.
Yes.
And then I made 2 different cuts out of the ribs.
You tried to do pork chops on one side,
Yeah.
and it kind of didn't work.
Yeah.
And on the other side, you decided you didn't want to cut up the spine because we don't really have a bone saw, and so that we decided we're just going to throw in the crock pot.
The challenge with his cuts, of course, as any good YouTuber would do, he would sit there and say, now you just take your bone saw and make a cut like this, and there'd be like 1 or 2 cuts, and then all of a sudden he'd be at the very bottom making the last 1 or 2 cuts. It
was edited. You can tell it was edited. I'm telling you.
Well, I don't blame him, because I edit YouTube videos. I know nobody wants to sit there and watch 2 minutes of somebody doing this, okay?
Yeah.
But it does give the false illusion of, oh, well, this is a quick and simple thing. But let me tell you, when you're sitting there trying to cut through the spine and make individual cuts, it was wearing me the heck out. And so I ended up, we did that with the first half of the pig, but then on the second half of the pig, we basically took primal cuts, and we're going to just put those things into a crock pot and be done with it. Well,
So we didn't hang the meat in a cooler for a few days?
where...
You see it, right?
I see it. I'm just trying to understand it.
Well, if you take it to a professional butcher, they're going to hang it in a cooler for a few days. It kind of solidifies all the...
That might have helped some things out if we could do that. Well, tell me how would somebody like us that doesn't have a cooler, how do we do that? I mean, I've got 1 refrigerator that feeds 7 people and 1 freezer chest. So how does someone like me, because I did, if what Jennifer's saying is the reason for putting it in a cooler first, I can see where the benefit would be, because when I was trying to do the pork chop cuts, I found my meat wanting to separate where the fat line was. It was just wanting to come straight apart. Tell me how I'm supposed to do that at home, because I hadn't seen a video touch on that topic yet. I watched many a video where people just walked out into the field, shot the pig, bled the pig, scalded the pig, took it over and cut it in half, and there we go.
Wait for cooler weather.
Wait for cooler weather. Wait, we live in Mississippi. We don't have cooler weather.
They want us to wait for it to snow.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean...
Tommy uses multiple ice chests.
Okay.
Keep the carcass on ice for almost a week.
Tommy, you gotta put that kind of stuff in your videos, man. I don't know to ask that question. I didn't even know to ask that question. So It sounds like we probably made our job a lot harder today, because it was that the meat was very pliable, and the fat just wanted to separate from the meat real easy. I think that's an excellent. I don't know if that's not really a tip maybe, but for somebody like me who's never done it before,
Yeah.
I mean, you're thinking get out there, get it done, get it cut down into the smallest parts you can so you can get it in your deep freezer for the winter. I didn't know there was a resting period. There's not a, you don't rest when you process rabbits or when you process ducks or chickens. You just get out there and get her done. So I never even knew that was something that needed to get done. So, folks, we are quickly running up on our hour. I only expected this to be a half-hour story. So let me answer a couple.
Tommy says they do the same thing with deer too.
Okay, well, I definitely needed to know that too. Let me answer a couple of these questions real quick. No, we have no plans to make cracklings. Another question wants to know if there will be a pig processing video. No, there will not be a pig processing video for two different reasons. Number one, clearly I have no business making a video about this. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just barely trying to figure it out. And when I say I butchered a pig today, I mean I butchered it. It was horrible. But the second reason is, y'all, this is a homesteading channel. And if nobody but my subscribers ever watched the video, then it would be fine. I'd put out a butchering video and I'd let you all watch it and we would all have a polite conversation about it, and everybody would be all the better. I would put something out there and either you would learn something or you'd be able to tell me something I needed to change and I would learn something, and it would be an edifying experience for everybody. But unfortunately, this is the internet. And every time I see people put out, well, not every time, but it looks like the majority of the time, people get headhunted. And I really don't. I am in my YouTube channel every day answering questions, answering comments, interacting with people. And the last thing I want to do is put out a butchering video where I just get slammed with hate and have to go in there and delete comments and block people from the channel and just make more work for myself than I care to deal with. So we have said it once before, 100 times before, and I'll say it 1,000 times again. I have no intention whatsoever of ever putting any part of a processing of any animal on my YouTube channel. I just don't feel like dealing with the drama fallout of it. Another question here. So you have it all packed and in the freezer? We do. We got whatever little bit got trimmed off that 93.5 pounds is all in the freezer. We have some that are in nice little steaks, some that are in nice little pork chops. We have a bunch of big roasts for it. Some of the ribs we left intact, a full slab of ribs. And also all the sausage cuts and the fat got stored separately as well. So we definitely wanted to keep some of the fat to get processed with the deer to make either deer burger or deer sausages down the road as well. So that's that. Okay. We got about 5 minutes left. If you have any questions, now is the last call on questions. What else can I tell you? I promised you at the beginning of the show maybe some insider information. This has not been filmed yet, but I will tell you that the apple cider vinegar is a success. It's been over a month and it now smells like straight apple cider vinegar, so things have gone well there. We have replanted our green stalk garden. I was delaying what I was going to do with gardening over the fall and winter because I was worried about putting in a crop that was going to make it where I wouldn't get to work on my main garden. I was always going to have a crop in the garden, and I want to do some major changes out there. So I decided to do some late fall, early winter crops in our green stalk garden. So when those start to sprout, I'll make a video about that. And let's see, videos that are coming out next week. We're doing a funny little experiment out in the deer field. So you'll have to come back and see how that works out. And what else is coming out? I'm going to have to check my own YouTube channel. I can't even remember what else is coming out. This is what happens when you try to put out like 3 or 4 videos a week. You can't even remember what videos you got. Let's see, another question here. How are the babies? We had one piglet that looked like it was on the brink of death. It was very lethargic and not doing very well. But the children brought it in, gave it to Jennifer. Jennifer was able to use some warmed up goat's milk. We still get goat's milk from a local friend of ours, Camelot Hills on YouTube if you want to look them up. And so we fed, or she fed, the pig. I started feeding the pig with a syringe until we ended up couldn't find the goat nipples that we had to go on the end of a bottle.
But we found it 2 days later.
Yeah, we found it 2 days later after we had already bought some more. But anyway, she was able to get the pig got up and was being active again. So we took it back out to Mama with a little dab of yellow paint on its butt, so we knew which one it was. And have since seen it nestled with its brothers and sisters, seen it nursing on Mommy, and all that kind of good stuff.
And it's active, and it seems to have definitely made a recovery.
Yep. So as things still stand, all 9 are still there. So, and there's another video coming out this week about Brandon driving the tractor in a new way, something he had never done before. So you'll have to check that out. So that's all your primers for things that are going on and what might be coming out. Let's see.
No, we never found the gambrel.
Never did. I mean, I searched everywhere 3 or 4 different times. You know, in the areas where I was just certain it would have to be, I searched 4 times, and in other areas I searched 2 or 3 times. That Jennifer came out and she checked everywhere once or twice. And then Arthur, was there any other children?
I don't think so.
Arthur
helped.
Arthur came out and he checked everywhere once, and nobody can find it. I agree with Tommy. I'll go out to the car tomorrow to go to work and have the thing hit me in the head. That's just the way things work sometimes.
Actually, it'll probably be Brandon that finds it the next time he goes out weed whacking. We've got a lot of tall grass.
Yeah. So probably when the weeds die back, or yeah, there's just no telling. But all right, folks.
One more.
Oh, one more thing.
Juice making videos.
Juice making videos?
They want more juice making videos.
Well, I guess as soon as I have something to make juice out of, the muscadines were the last thing that we
planted
juiced.
Carrots.
Yeah, we'll probably juice some carrots. I got some purple cosmos carrots growing in the garden tower.
Hey, maybe they'll make purple juice.
Well, we'll have to see. Because if you know your purple carrots, you know that they're orange on the inside, purple on the outside. So who knows what kind of color we get out of them.
Maybe.
Well, we'll see. Who knows what we'll juice. We'll have a lot of fun with it. So, again, if it's your first time being with us, make sure that you check out thehomesteadnetwork.com, where you can find out about all the other channels and what shows are running and when. But until next time, we appreciate you being a part of our show, Sunday Slowdown at J&J Acres. Thank you for choosing us over the NFL and the presidential debate. We know you could have went and saw the circus tonight, but you came and saw us instead, and that means a lot to us. So, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.